It's a little terrifying because you absolutely cannot miss.
Goalies now are completely at a premium.
Not, right? Like, Canada doesn't have a ton of great options. Welcome to the big show. I am Ryan Kennedy, joined as always by Michael Traikos, and joined today by the legend, the Sudbury Hall of Famer, Ken Campbell. Great to have you here, Ken. We got a lot to get into, and not all of it positive, but sometimes that's the most fun to talk about. The Edmonton Oilers lost 9-1 to the Colorado Avalanche, tying their largest margin of defeat on home ice since they lost to the Sabres in 2009. That's how long ago that was. Stuart Skinner, .889 save percentage. Evan Bouchard, struggling. Connor McDavid, seen yelling at Evan Bouchard at a recent practice, and McDavid being quoted as saying, "It's been flat. It's no secret. It's been flat. That starts with me as a leader. We haven't had enough energy, not enough emotion." So, Ken, I will start to you. What is going on with the Oilers?
Boy, I think Connor McDavid's right. I think he's absolutely right. And I think it starts with him because I've seen plays this year where he isn't particularly interested in doing a ton of back checking. And that whole team, I think, has just really hit a rut. Clearly, they're missing Cody Ceci. We know that. Like he was. That's probably the whole reason.
I don't think those words have ever been uttered in anyone in the history of Cody Ceci. There,
I will tell you this: they're missing another guy who went to Los Angeles, Corey Perry. They're missing him in a big way. They're missing Evander Kane. They don't have a lot of that sort of grit in their lineup. And, you know, to me, I mean, I've said that I've sort of beaten my fist to the desk all the time saying that, you know, this team isn't going to win until they get goaltending. It's just not. I mean, I mean, Stuart Skinner is not. The problem with Stuart Skinner is you literally never know which Stuart Skinner you're getting.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's games where he looks like the second coming of Ken Dryden, and then there's a lot of games where he looks terrible, and there's no clue, like from game to game, period to period, minute to minute, shot to shot, which guy is going to show up, and that you just can't have that. My theory on goaltending and in the NHL, I've boiled it down to a pretty simple thing. Throw away all the analytics and everything. If your goalie stops all the shots he's supposed to stop, and maybe 2 or 3 that he's not supposed to stop, you have a great chance of winning. Simple as that. You have a great chance of winning. This guy doesn't do that. You know, Stuart Skinner is not the guy. And for me, you know, there's not much you can do there. Like you can't fire the coach. You just extended him. You got to make a trade. And to me, they desperately need a goalie. They desperately need a goalie because I think part of the problem is that when you know in your mind, in your heart of hearts, you're playing that your goalie's not good and he's not going to stop a lot of shots, I think that resonates right up through the lineup and it really makes it difficult to play the game. So I think that's the area they have to tend to first. And then they've got way other big problems as well.
Yeah. So, Mike, let's talk about it's funny because Edmonton has had some pretty brutal autumns in the past. And when I say the past, I mean like last year and the year before. And then they came together, you know, they made a run to the Stanley Cup final both times. But I am kind of interested, the lack of Corey Perry, as Ken mentioned, it just feels like, you know, this flatness that McDavid talked about. I don't think Corey Perry would have stood for that. You know, if Corey Perry was still on the team and they were playing like this, I feel like sticks would be thrown in the dressing room. You know, hackles would be raised, as they say. So, Mike, what's your take on the current state of the Oilers?
Well, isn't it funny, Ryan and Ken, that, you know, it's not just Edmonton that's kind of struggling out of the gates. It's also Florida, and both teams now, you know, back-to-back finals. For Florida, 3 straight trips to the final. You know, we're seeing the effects of all those games. And, you know, for Edmonton, you don't have a Stanley Cup to kind of look back on fondly and say, oh, it was all worth it. All you're thinking is, boy, that was a lot of hockey we played and we didn't win. So, you know, 2 years in a row like that.
Why did we do that?
I'm not surprised that they've come out flat. And to your point, Ryan, like this is the same old from the Edmonton Oilers. Like a couple of years ago, they were the worst team in hockey up until I think January 1. And then they started to play real good hockey. And I think that was sort of around the time when they got Corey Perry in the lineup. So, I don't think it's just Corey Perry being out that they're missing, or Cody Ceci. I think this is just, the Edmonton Oilers are kind of waiting until, maybe the calendar turns to 2026 until they get their games right. And then, I think they are also looking at the Pacific Division going, we don't have to be good right now. We can wait and, just bide our time.
Yeah, interesting. Don't wait too long, though, and we'll talk about some of the young stars in the Pacific Division later on in the show. But, Ken, let's talk about another struggling Canadian team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you were at the game against Carolina the other night. They gave up 47 shots, which is not ideal in a regulation contest. Craig Berube, the coach, calling out the defense, saying if you want to be a good defensive team, you got to check. You got to have good sticks. You got to be hard. You got to win battles, and you got to have good structure. We don't have any of that right now. Toronto is allowing 3.75 goals against per game, also not ideal. Anthony Stolarz, a Stuart Skinner-esque 889 save percentage on the season. So, Ken, do the Leafs have a defense problem? Do they have a goaltending problem? Or do they have both problems?
I think they have both, but the defensive problem, I think, is much more of a concern. This team, I mean, last night was ridiculous. This team bleeds grade A chances against. 4 breakaways in the second period. So you're sitting there going, okay, guys, we just gave up 4 clear-cut breakaways this period. Let's go out and let's do better in the third period. And then they go out and get outshot 22-2 in the third period, and they lose. And that's coming on the heels of a night when they gave up 39 shots and lost to Boston as well. This team, the under-the-hood numbers, rush chances, turnover chances, all those other things that the nerds look at, they are horrible in all of them, in every single one of them. And what that does is you're not allowed to have a goaltender who's not that great. Your goaltender has to be great, and their goaltending has not been great. Their defense has been abysmal, and their goaltending has not been great. And that's why they're in this spot. And Craig Berube is absolutely right. This is a matter of execution. It's a matter of making the sacrifices that you need to make to be a good defensive team, getting sticks in lanes, playing physical, coming back into your own end, all those other things. And I've seen a pattern here. Like I saw it against New Jersey. I saw it against Carolina. Teams that are fast and teams that play that puck pursuit forecheck thing are a world of hurt for this team. And they are, it's not just a blip now. It's starting to become a trend. And I think that's troubling for the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's almost as though they lost like a 100-point guy who was like a rookie candidate. It's almost like they lost a guy like that. I mean, I don't know, but it's almost
I can't put my finger on it. Yeah, I can't put my finger on it. No, it's a great point. And it does feel like sometimes just that level of care. Like I don't worry about like William Nylander per se. Like that's a guy that wants the puck. And if he doesn't have it, he's going to try to get it and he's going to hold on to it. And I've seen it with Austin Matthews at crucial times, like in that Pittsburgh victory, which was inexplicable, let's face it. But it just feels like that care level isn't where it needs to be. But Mike, I want to ask you about goaltending. Joseph Woll, back with the organization. He's going to do some Marley's time to just get into game shape. But how do you think Woll's return will impact Anthony Stolarz, who frankly has probably played too much hockey so far?
Yeah, and I think that's the bigger loss right now. Like, obviously, this team looks a lot better with Mitch Marner, but I don't think that cleans up the defense 100%. Like, I think what they were missing from last year, and they were a better defensive team last year, but they had they had great goaltending. Between Stolarz and Woll, and it was either one guy was healthy, one guy was hurt, but whoever was in net was getting the job done. Now we're seeing how much they do miss Joseph Woll, and he's played one game in the minors right now, Ryan. He had 3 goals or allowed 3 goals on 24 shots. So, it might be a little bit longer before they get Joseph Woll because he was pulled in that game as well. So, they can't get him into the lineup fast enough because Anthony Stolarz just is not looking like the number 1 goalie that I thought, maybe we were seeing glimpses of last season. He looks like he's a guy that needs to be in that tandem spot, but it can't be in a tandem spot with Caden Primo, who's now on waivers, or I guess with Carolina. And now they have Dennis Hill to be like, neither guy is good enough to be a backup.
Indeed. The Hilda Beast got roughed up. I agree.
He was actually really good. Sorry, Ryan, to interrupt, but
sure.
he actually was really good last night.
Could have been worse.
He wasn't even close to the reason why they lost.
Mm.
And if not for him, it could have been a blowout. But
here's the thing, Ken. You can either have like a really shoddy defense as long as you have great goaltending, or you can have just like average goaltending as long as you have a great defense. But
and you can
have both going out the window is just it's a recipe for disaster.
Right.
Indeed. All right, let's get into the positives this year. Okay, so Connor Bedard has played 164 NHL games now. He has the exact same amount of points that Patrick Kane had in his first 164 NHL games with the Chicago Blackhawks. Bedard with a slight edge in goals, but that's pretty impressive to be right up there with Patrick Kane. I think this summer, a lot of people were, I don't know if concerned is the word, but it's like, oh, Connor Bedard, when's he going to get into gear? Is he going to get into gear? Are the Hawks going to be another doormat? And so far, Chicago has been not only surviving, but thriving. So, Mike, I'll go to you first on this one. Were we too early to be concerned about Connor Bedard, and why has he been such a revelation this season?
Yeah, I was never really concerned with Connor Bedard individually. I was concerned more of like, how is Chicago putting him in this situation where he has no one to play with and he's just getting his teeth kicked in night after night. Like, if you remember, like Chicago by year 3, like that was a Stanley Cup winning team. And it was a team that, Patrick Kane, he put up those points, alongside Jonathan Toews, and a team that had Marian Hossa and Patrick Sharp and Chris Versteeg and Andrew Ladd and, Dustin Byfuglien. Like there was a long list of players there where, give one of those guys to Connor Bedard and, let's see what he could do. So that was the concern for me, Ryan, is that he just didn't have the support. And you're talking about a guy who was way too young to be playing top line minutes without any sort of insulation. But, true to his superstar status, he's making it work. And again, he's making it work with not a whole lot of people around him, getting the job done alongside him. I know, he's making some guys look really good, but there's no Jonathan Toews on this team.
Yeah. But there is a Frank Nazar who I think is coming into his own, which does help. Those young guys, Artem Levshunov on the back end, or Levshunov, I should say, is really getting hot now. So it is interesting that core starting to come together, albeit a young core. Ken, you obviously saw the beginnings of Patrick Kane's career. You did a fantastic cover story for the Hockey News years ago about how much it cost for Patrick Kane's parents to get him to the NHL. I'll never forget that one. That was great. If you are a THN subscriber, go to the archives and check that one out. But Kane versus Bedard at this point in their careers, obviously different players. Patrick Kane, all flash, super smart out there. Bedard, super skilled, but also has that, competitive drive. He's got a bit of an edge to his game in terms of how he competes. Just curious how you've seen Bedard this season versus early Patrick Kane.
Well, I mean, all the points Mike made are well taken. I'm not sure you can compare the two of them because of that. But I mean, you were asking if people were, premature in their gnashing of teeth over Connor Bedard in his first couple of seasons. And yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, they were. All last year, all I kept saying was Connor Bedard is the least of my worries if I'm the Chicago Blackhawks. I would not be worried about him at all. Premier player, elite talent, generational talent, all of those things. You know, and I mean, Patrick Kane drove play as a winger, right? You know, Connor Bedard drives play as a centerman. You know, I think a big part of it is guys like you said, Levchinov. You know, now Connor Bedard has a guy who can get him the puck. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to make things happen when your defenseman can't get the puck to you. You know, that makes it difficult. That's why guys like Erik Karlsson were always so valuable in their careers, right? They could get the puck up the ice fast and they could get it to these forwards who were great. And I had no concerns about Connor Bedard in the first 2 years of his career because of the fact, like Mike said, I mean, you know, like, who is he playing with? Like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? These are not NHL players. Like, this is not an NHL team. And I think now that some of these players have grown a little bit and they've brought in some other guys that can help. You know, I think a Nick Foligno in his way helps, sets a physical tone, you know, and can also take Connor Bedard through those rough patches where it's like, hey kid, I know it's not going great now, but don't worry about it. You're still great. All those things. Right. No, I never for 1 minute worried about Connor Bedard. And I think Connor Bedard is, when it's all said and done, is going to be a top 5 player in this league for a long, long time.
Isn't it also funny, Ken, that year 3 is such an important year for a lot of these guys? Because obviously Bedard wins the Rookie of the Year, Calder, as a rookie. The second year, you know, he goes through that, you know, quote unquote sophomore slump. But then year 3, it's like, all right, now we see what a player is made of. And I feel like that is the pivotal year for a lot of these guys.
It really is. It was for Guy Lafleur. It's been for a lot of guys. Like you're absolutely right, Michael. And another guy I'm sure we're going to be talking about, Leo Carlsson, is in year 3 as well. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. That is, and to me, that's why it's so important for a guy in entry level when he's done his entry level contract. I think it's really, really important that somehow the team and him find a way to get him starting in training camp the next year, because that's such a pivotal time in their development. And I always see these guys who end up, you know, having to sit out because of a contract dispute. You know, they end up joining late, and then it takes a while. I mean, Jason Robertson didn't do that, but there are a lot of guys, it takes them a long time to kind of get back to where they were. So yeah, like keep it going with Connor Bedard. I'm sure they're going to, but yeah.
Yeah. Indeed. And it is interesting that, you know, over the summer when they did the Players Tour in Vegas, Connor Bedard was talking about the off-ice component of being an NHLer and how he has learned to just leave it at the rink. You know, it's like if you're in a slump, when you go home, don't think about the slump. And when things are going great, you know, it's like, hey, you can think about it, but leave it at the rink and you'll be so much happier. And so far, so good there. Ken, you mentioned Leo Carlsson, and that dovetails quite nicely to our next question, which could be Bedard, could be Macklin Celebrini, could be Leo Carlsson, could be somebody else. I ask you, kind gentlemen, who is a player that you believe has jumped into the superstar category this season? Ken, I'll start with you.
Well, I mean, the guy that I just talked about, Leo Carlsson, like my criteria for superstar is pretty, the bar is pretty high. So the guy, in my opinion, a superstar is a guy who's a top 5 player in the league for an extended period of time. So that separates, like, to me, you know, let's say a guy like Matt Sundin, he was never a superstar. You know, he was a very good player, a star player.
Come on, Ken.
He was not a superstar. No,
he played with Nick Antropov, okay?
yeah. Well, no, but anyway, so that's kind of what the basis that I judge superstar on. So it's hard to say who's a superstar now because they haven't done it for long enough. But I mean, all of those guys you mentioned, and Leo Carlsson has just been, and last night he got 2 more. You know, this guy. Did you see that goal he scored in Vegas the other night? That was amazing. Yeah, no, I think this guy
is a beast.
This guy's
I don't even think he's even grown fully into his body either.
I think he's like I think he's like Mikko Rantanen with like better wheels almost.
And a center.
And a center. Like he's like he is just insane. Yeah, I love this guy, and I love what Anaheim's doing, and he's a big part of it.
Yeah, and let's think about this for a second, and Mike, I'll get your answer, but is Leo Carlsson, and this is rhetorical, we don't need to get into it now, but is he the top center for Sweden at the Olympics based on how he is playing?
Absolutely.
And how everyone else is playing.
I asked Michael the question, but absolutely. 100% he's the number one center.
Who are their centers? If you look at Sweden, that's the one spot where they're just not good, because Pettersson, oh my God, is even a number 2 center right now.
And Zibanejad's struggling. So, yeah, Leo Carlsson, the ship is yours. But, Mike, superstars, categories, who's come up for you?
Yeah, okay, so one guy, Cole Caulfield. I would argue with, I agree with Ken. I think he's been a star for his, first, 5 years of his career, 4 or 5 years of his career. This year, I think he is entering superstar territory. 12 goals, 15 games. Only Nathan McKinnon has scored more. Last year he had 37 goals. I fully expect them to blow past that number. We're talking about a guy that should be a Rocket Richard finalist before the end of the season. I'm going to say safely gets 50 or more goals. Just him and Nick Suzuki, I would argue, have entered superstar territory.
Right on.
And Suzuki in the past too, a little bit, Michael. That's a big thing for you to say.
Listen, Nick Suzuki, I thought was a fine player, and I think he was Montreal's best option at number 1 in terms of their center position. But he has really developed into, and I've said this before. I always said he's a poor man's Patrice Bergeron. If I'm Team Canada, he's for sure on my team, because I could feel safe having Nick Suzuki as my 4th line center.
Yeah, I always thought Nick Suzuki was like a 1B center. But I think he's broken that ceiling. I think he's earned the right to be called a true number 1 right now, especially with the way that Montreal is playing, and with him not only being their most important center, but also their captain, which is not an easy thing to be in Montreal. So shout out to Nick Suzuki for breaking that number 1 ceiling. All right, so we're in Toronto. There's a lot of excitement right now. It's Hall of Fame weekend, I guess long weekend, because the actual ceremony is tonight. Very great class, and very tall class too, I might add. Joe Thornton, not even the biggest, because Zdeno Chara, the tallest NHL player, or the biggest NHL player of all time, at least for now, gets inducted. So I ask you, and Mike, I'll start with you. Where does Zdeno Chara rank among all-time NHL defensemen? And I ask this because, I like to think about, if you had a time machine and you could send players back in time or forward in time, like who would excel no matter when you played them? To me, Zdeno Chara, like dead puck era, no problem. You're not getting past him. And, and obviously if he played in the original 6 era, people would scream in terror because they had never seen a human being that size before. And then today, if you think about how big and strong he is and what a two-way player he would still be incredibly effective. But I am curious, Mike, like where does he rank all time? You got your Bobby Orr, you got your Nick Lidstrom. I'm willing to entertain, even though his career is not over, Cale Makar somewhere in that conversation. But where do you see Chara?
Okay, so there's a list of defensemen that might not always be up for the Norris Trophy, but if you're going to pull all 32 GMs and say, who are you picking out of this, out of all the defensemen in the league? And I think during their time, Shea Weber, Zdeno Chara would be at the top of most teams in GM's list. Like they just want that guy in the dressing room, on the ice, whether it's PK, power play. And I think Chara's on there. I don't know where he ranks, Ryan. He's probably on a short list with the names that you mentioned. But the funny thing about Chara, like coming out of that lockout, the Ottawa Senators had to basically decide between, whether or not they were going to go deep with Chara or Wade Redden. And with the way that the game was being played, all of them decided, okay, well, Wade Redden's our guy because, he can skate, he's a puck mover. And now that the shackles are off and you can't hook and hold, they thought Redden would be more, more better suited to that game. And boy, were they wrong, because Chara went from the dead puck era defenseman to a guy that succeeded, like you said, in every era, and wins a cup with Boston. He's a guy that could score 19 goals for you on the back end. He's also a guy that could put you into the stanchion and break your neck if you're Max Pacioretty. So he really did it all, and there really aren't any defensemen that kind of play that style anymore. I guess maybe a Jacob Trouba would be the only guy that really kind of strikes fear in you on a defensive aspect, because he can hurt you. But for me, Chara is just he's sort of a dinosaur. Like, I don't think we get defensemen like that anymore.
Is it my turn to talk?
Ken, I throw it to you. Like I say, Orr, Lidstrom, Doug Harvey, Paul Coffey.
Well, yeah. So okay. So let me preface this by saying that Zdeno Chara is a great defenseman. Was a great defenseman. Mm-hmm. He's a very worthy Hall of Famer. I'm going to go with that. I'm not nearly as high on Zdeno Chara as you guys are. Not even close. He's not. Yeah. He's not in my top 10. He might not even be in my top 20. Yeah, no, like, I mean, come on, like Doug Harvey, 8 Norris trophies, Eddie Shore, Dennis Potvin, Paul Coffey.
They weren't broadcasting games during that time.
What's that? What's that?
What era is that?
Who cares what era it is? We're talking about who's the greatest defenseman. Doug Harvey was the best defenseman in the world. Just because all the defensemen were in the AHL, that would have been in the NHL, he still was the best defenseman in the world. Like, if you want to go by that metric, then Keandre Miller's better than all those guys. You know what I mean? Like, you can only judge them by the era in which they play. Yeah, that's the only way you can judge a guy's greatness. You cannot compare any of them, because a fourth line center now is better than Rocket Richard. So you have to compare by the eras in which they played. And to me, there are so many other guys. Like, I wrote some of them down this morning. Dennis Potvin, Paul Coffey, Ray Bourque, Larry Robinson, Doug Harvey, Eddie Shore, Chris Chelios, Chris Pronger, Scott Stevens, Al McInnes, Duncan. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, I think you could make the argument. I'm not sure you'd win the argument, but I think you could make the argument that Zdeno Chara isn't even the best defenseman in his Hall of Fame class.
Because of Duncan Keith.
Because of Duncan Keith. Two Norris trophies and a Conn Smythe. Like, come on, guys. I mean, and then
this isn't a Duncan Keith is garbage and Chara is the best. It's like,
no, I'm just saying. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that, like, is when all is said and done, is Zdeno Chara going to have had a better career than Victor Hedman? And then you've got Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, Miro Heiskanen, Drew. If Drew Doughty's career ended today, who would be considered the better defenseman, Zdeno Chara or Drew Doughty?
I mean, that's a fair question.
Yeah, to me, it's not. To me, like I said, Zdeno Chara, great defenseman, Hall of Fame, belongs there, all of those things. I think people are overrating them. And in some cases, I think they're overrating them by a lot. The top 2 defensemen are Lidstrom and Orr, in that order, hot take. And then a lot of those other guys I mentioned before you get to Zdeno Chara. I would have him probably realistically around 14 or 15.
Okay, cool. Like I said, I always like to think of the field of dreams scenario where you put them all on the ice together. But you make a good point, Ken, that that's not really realistic, just because of the things that happened are the things that happened. Let's stick with some Boston hockey here. Another Hall of Famer that was just inducted alongside Chara was former Boston University Terriers coach Jack Parker. 40 years with the Terriers, 3 national championships. He had NHL offers along the way, turned them down. And, it's funny. I talked to him about it at the ring ceremony, and he was like, look, when I was at BU, my players changed every 3-4 years. In the NHL, the coaches change every 3 or 4 years. Right. And it's like, hey, that's a great way at looking at it. If you want to be employed, he did point out that NHL coaches make a lot more money today than they did 30, 40 years ago. So it would be more tempting now, even if you were only there for 2 years. But was he kind of onto something here? Because I look at David Carle at Denver right now. He's already won multiple national championships. Super young guy. Has, as far as we know, turned down NHL jobs, or at least the opportunity. And I don't blame him, because he could build something incredible with the Pioneers. He already has, for that matter, and have job security for life. So, Ken, I'll go to you first on this one. What do you think about building a legacy with a big university program versus the coaching carousel that is the NHL?
Yeah. And David Carle, I think, re-upped with Denver as well. So, he doubled down on that program, and he's staying for a while, if not forever. And Jack Parker, I mean, it's hard to say that Jack Parker made the wrong choice. I mean, he's got a Hall of Fame ring on his finger right now, right. I mean, it's hard to say that. The job security that you would have at that level, the job satisfaction that you would have at that level, the ability to, impact young people's lives, both on and off the ice, which Jack Parker did in a big way for a lot of guys. That's pretty intoxicating. And that is pretty great when you can, think about it. You practice all week, you play on the weekends, you're a bus ride away. You're not for the most part, you're not in California or something on an 11-game road trip that lasts 2.5 weeks. You're playing on weekends and you're back home. It's a great thing. And you can obviously accomplish a whole lot doing that. And I don't know what kind of coach Jack Parker would have been in the NHL, but who's to say that Jack Parker would have been a good NHL coach?
True.
Because guys come from that situation. And, Dave Hackstall,
right?
Great. Even Herb Brooks, who won a gold medal with the U.S. Olympic team, he was a good NHL coach. Was he a great NHL coach? Probably not. You know what I mean? When you have that opportunity to create that kind of legacy, it's a pretty big deal. But then you sort of offset that against the intoxication of coaching the best players in the best league in the world. Right. And maybe getting a chance to get your name on the Stanley Cup. Boy, oh boy, that has got to be, and the money, of course. That's got, because really, if a guy comes out of college, a really successful college coach comes out of college and he signs a deal, he's going to make enough money, probably, even if he doesn't succeed, to set himself up for the rest of his life, and he could maybe go back to college. Right. So, yeah, but I don't know. It's hard to say that Jack Parker made the wrong choice because of the fact that he's going to be giving a Hall of Fame speech tonight.
There you go. Mike, I will redirect it to you. Do you think we see David Carle in the NHL in, let's say, the next decade?
I think so. There's going to be so much turnover, Ryan, that, eventually the lure is going to be too strong. And, for David Carle, he's just kind of waiting for the perfect scenario. I will say this about the NHL coaching kind of carousel. We do see a lot of changes year after year. There's just, the shelf life is not that long, but every coach gets recycled. You look at John Tortorella.
They all got a couple of chances.
Yeah, you usually get 5 or 6, as long as you're a good coach, you usually have 5 or 6 different teams that you have coached. And Todd McClellan, he coached San Jose, then Edmonton, then LA. Now he's in Detroit. I imagine after Detroit, he's going to go to another team. Even if you don't get a head coaching job, generally speaking, you're going to get an assistant or associate coaching job as well. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work out for you, well, college teams will always take you back. So, I don't think there's that risk reward that David Carle's really got to be worried about. If it doesn't go well, I'm sure he'll get another NHL coaching job, or he could just go back to the NCAA.
Fair enough. All right. Before we get to rapid fire, Ken, you were in Czechia for about a month. Sounded like an awesome trip. And you got to interview Dominik Hasek, which you will be writing about in the future for us. So first of all, tell us about your sit down with the Dominator. What was that like?
Oh, it was great. It was fantastic, actually. I was wondering if it was how it was going to be. He was we met in a coffee shop in a mall downtown, and that was on his invitation, he wasn't afraid to just be out in public and no airs. He was very, what I noticed about him was he was just so much less tightly wound than he was when he played in the NHL. Like he had so much more perspective. He laughed, he joked. It's funny. He's what, 60? He's 60, he just turned 60, right? In October. Wow. He's got 2 kids, one who's like 8 months and one that's like a toddler. So Whoa. He's kind of going through all this like fatherhood thing all over again after his kids are like in their 20s and 30s. So that was kind of neat. But the thing that I really liked talking to him about the most was he plays beer league hockey now. And like the passion that he talked about beer league hockey, he plays defense because of course every goalie thinks that he's grayed out and wants to be thinks he's a Norris Trophy defenseman in a goaltending uniform. So he talked a lot about that. It was so funny. He said, yeah, we had a game last week and it was against our big rivals and we beat them 6-4. And he was like getting all animated and excited about it. And he said, yeah, my wife was really pissed off because it was my son's birthday and we were having a birthday party for him that day. And but I got there on time. So everything was okay. And like, just the passion with which he still talked about the game. And of course, the big thing that I wanted to talk about with him was his political opinions, right?
Sure.
I mean, he's not sticking to sports. He's not shutting up and playing. I mean, this guy is out there. He's putting his opinion out there. He's, very, very vocal, and he receives an awful lot of backlash for it. In fact, there was a point he told me where he had to have some security for a while because of, he was a little, concerned for his family and things like that. But like the thing that really kind of was so stark was that he laughs a lot now. He's much more mellow and like just, the years of perspective and not being in the league and everything like that. It was just really interesting to chat with him. And he's a guy that, I personally think, and I've always thought that he is the greatest NHL goalie of all time. You could definitely make that argument for other guys, but for me, he's the greatest of all time. And so it was great to sit down with him. He gave me an hour. Showed me pictures of his kids. He was going through his phone. He was like really open and just mellow. So it was kind of neat to see.
That's awesome. And real quick, you and I talked about this. I've been to Prague briefly. Yeah. Is it still an underrated city in your mind?
Yes. Yeah. 100%. 100%. And I'll say it. And for this reason, like everybody you talk to talks about how beautiful Prague is and how gorgeous it is and how, the Gothic architecture and all this, everything, the Charles Bridge area. And then you get there and you go, man, they kind of somehow undersold it.
Totally.
It's just an incredible city. It's so vibrant. Lots to do. The beer's ridiculously good. I fell in love with a dark beer there that I might just go back in a couple of months so I can go have some more of it. So yes, absolutely an underrated city with so much culture, so much history, so much to do. It was just amazing.
I agree. When I was there, I ate an entire roast goose leg with dumplings. It was one of the best meals I've ever had in my lifetime. And then I got dessert because I'm insane like that. And that was great too. All right. So for over 75 years, the Hockey News has been the ultimate hockey fix. Now you can get 12 issues delivered straight to your door, packed with stories, stats, and a bonus gift issue to kick things off. Head over to thn.com and get in on the action. Speaking of action, it is rapid fire time. We got a fun one right now. Let's start off. Mike, I will go to you first on this one. Okay, we're talking Hockey Hall of Fame. The 2025 class is being inducted, but 2026, we can always think ahead to that. You got Carey Price, Ryan Getzlaf, Patrice Bergeron, Phil Kessel, Eric Staal, Henrik Zetterberg, all eligible, many of those for the first time. I believe Price and Getzlaf were maybe already eligible this year. But who needs to get in for you, Mike, in the 2026 class?
Okay, Carey Price and Patrice Bergeron, those are my locks. Let's talk about Phil Kessel. I think that's going to be an interesting debate. I don't know if he gets in right away, but he should. All right, let's go through the stats here. 992 points. There's a check. Over 1,000 games. He's played 1,286 games. Another check. won 3 Stanley Cups. We'll say 2 because that last Stanley Cup in Vegas, he only played 4 games in the actual playoffs, but led the Penguins in scoring in 2016 when he was actually robbed, I think, of the Conn Smythe. Led them in the playoff scoring, but for me, he checks all the boxes. He, came back from cancer, wins the Masterton Trophy, but I think a lot of Toronto fans will be upset by this, but for me, Phil Kessel is a Hall of Famer and he deserves to be there.
And an Iron Man. Let's not forget the Iron Man record. Ken, who gets in for you?
Well, and this is just for me because I've kind of given up on talking about who should be in and who shouldn't be in because it's the most arbitrary decision in sports. Like it comes down to the whims of 18 people on a summer day, on a Tuesday afternoon, when they discuss everybody's legacy. They have no transparency. They have no accountability. They don't talk about why they didn't put a guy in or didn't a guy or a woman. So to me, like to say a guy should be or will be in the Hall of Fame is pointless because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we think. It just matters what 18 mostly white older men think. and I think I think it's really, really flawed. But in any event, Patrice Bergeron, no question. Carey Price, no question. And to your point, Mike, I was going to talk about him in the same way. Phil Kessel, he is absolutely a Hall of Famer. For the Iron Man streak, for the Cups, for the cancer, should have been the Conn Smythe Trophy winner in Pittsburgh one year and wasn't. Absolutely. Getzlaf, Zetterberg, those guys are all, again, Getzlaf, Zetterberg, those guys will be dependent on how
the votes go.
Patrick Marleau, Ken. Is Patrick Marleau a Hall of Famer?
For showing up for work every day? No, not in my mind. Not in my mind. You don't it's not a participation Hall of Fame. It's a Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Good. No, like not in my lifetime or any lifetime of mine. I guess that would just be my lifetime, but no way, no chance in my time. But he may get in because some guy who played with him in San Jose or something might get up and make an impassioned speech about him, and everybody will go, "Oh yeah, that sounds really good." That's how Clark Gillies got in. Bill Torrey got up and just wowed the room, and they all went, "Okay, Clark Gillies a Hall of Famer." Like Václav Nedomansky, Rogie Vachon, for 40 years, they weren't Hall of Famers. And then all of a sudden they were. I don't know what changed.
Right.
But anyway, so guys like that, those other guys like that we're talking about, the Zetterbergs and that, they'll probably get in someday. They may get in next year. Like I said, it'll depend on that. But to me, those guys, the 3 guys you talked about, Michael, are my locks, are my only locks. And then the rest of it is just, however these people feel.
There you go. We shall see. Okay. Speaking of somebody we know will be a Hall of Famer eventually, Alex Ovechkin. Here is an interesting question. Should the NHL retire Ovechkin's number 8 once he is out of the league? Mike, I'll go to you on that.
No, that's the Capitals should, but not the end. You think the whole NHL you can't wear number 8? No,
I know it's too common a number. Yeah,
too common.
Ken, any thoughts on that one? Any chance?
Hard no. That's it. Hard no.
Yeah.
Not a chance. No chance.
Yeah.
Fair.
I don't know where you're going with this, Kennedy, but I
didn't write the question. I just just because I say the question doesn't mean I agree with the question.
Okay.
Ryan, you put this
here.
for it.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on. That's right. Who is your Hart Trophy front runner right now? Ken, I'll go to you first on this one.
I would have to go with Cale Makar, probably. To me, Cale Makar is one of the best goal scorers in the NHL. Period. Not one of the best goal scoring defensemen.
Edmonton certainly thinks so.
Yeah, not one of the best goal scoring defensemen. He's one of the best goal scorers in the NHL today. And everything flows through him. They're a good team. He's I mean, Miro Heiskanen's been really good this year. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but he's putting together a Norris Trophy type season and won't win it.
Right.
Because Cale Makar, if he keeps doing this, is just going to roll over everybody. So I think he's the easy Norris Trophy winner. And in my opinion, at this point, after whatever 16 games or whatever we are into the season, he would be my Hart Trophy guy.
All right, Mike, who you got?
I'm staying in Colorado, but I'm not going with Makar. I'm going with his teammate, Nathan MacKinnon. And, I guess that's going to be the trick, Ken, is how do you separate one from the other? Because it's the most valuable to his team. And arguably, both guys are having MVP seasons. So I don't disagree that Cale Makar has been everything for the Colorado Avalanche. I would just say that Nathan MacKinnon has also been pretty darn good himself. 14 goals and 16 points. Leading the league in goals and points. And, it's just, I think the argument is who's a better player right now, MacKinnon, Makar, or McDavid.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would agree with what you're saying, Mike, and the sentiment that you're saying. Like, I mean, and it's crazy because if somebody else has a really good season, maybe neither of those guys will win it because they'll split votes, right?
Yeah.
But to me, I go by, if all things are equal, and in my mind they are, what's the harder position to play? And I think it's defense. So that would kind of be my tipping point there. But your points are very well taken.
Can I say one more thing here?
Yeah, go for it.
Makes the playoffs. Sidney Crosby's my MVP.
Oh, not Malkin?
Nah,
fair enough.
Again, it's the same reason why Crosby was the Conn Smythe winner, not Kessel. It's like you take him off that lineup and all of a sudden it all kind of falls apart, I feel.
There you go. All right. I will end on a hot take. If San Jose or Chicago make the playoffs, I will see Macklin Celebrini or Connor Bedard as potential Hart Trophy winners. And because I get the last word, that is the last word. I would like to thank Michael Traikos and Ken Campbell for this fantastic edition of The Big Show. And thank you all for listening. We'll see y'all later.